And before we get started again, let's talk through a couple items. I wanted to remind you that everyone who has joined is joined muted so that the presentation can be conducted without any outside disruptions. But I don't want that to stop you from asking any questions. You can do interactions with me while Chuck is presenting, either through a Q&A or through chatting, and you can find that in your Zoom functionality. So chat away with me and we'll get some answers to you. The questions at the very end when we have a mini question and answer session about 5 minutes before 1 o'clock. Another reminder for you, we record every one of these Training Tuesdays and we put them out on our YouTube channels for Dayton Superior, as well as DaytonSuperior.com website. You just search Training Tuesdays and you can find all the ones that we've done in the past. And there are quite a few, so I hope you're utilizing that. Let's see what else. I think I'm going to introduce Chuck and let him have at it because we have quite a bit. Do want to remind you that this presentation is intended for training purposes only. So get out to DaytonSuperior.com to check on any technical specifications for the products that we mention in this training. So let's introduce Chuck, because I bet you none of you guys know who Chuck is. He's like the most notorious. Okay. 49 years of experience he's got in the concrete construction industry. He is a prominent figure in this industry and spent 20 years dealing with accessories, formings, and chemical products, notably 29 of those years at Dayton Superior, lucky us. He's very diverse with his roles. He has been a product manager as well as having a business and civil engineering degree. That uniquely positions him as a subject matter expert on various topics and products. And he is going to share his wealth with you on the Topcast tricks of the trade.
Thank you, Heidi. Okay, we're going to get right into this here. We're going to talk today about Topcast, obviously our decorative finish system. And today's session is going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about a product overview, the typical applications, uh, what it actually takes to do a job as far as planning, application, removal, and then any post-applied treatments that can be put to it. We're also going to talk about tricks of the trade that we've kind of learned over the years in being the supplier of this product line. Uh, we start from what we originally started out working with a high pressure washer to now moving into other methods of actually cleaning off the slab at the end, which we're going to cover today. We're going to talk a little bit about troubleshooting and inconsistent finishes, which I have had a couple of them. And then we're going to talk about what equipment that may be required as far as what guidelines we would recommend. So with that, we'll get right into it. So what is Topcast? Topcast is a great functional concrete resurfacing material. Basically allows you to give you an exposed aggregate surface. And you can see this in, the applications range from commercial to plaza areas, walkways, residential, pools, patios, driveways. The things that you can see done with this product line are just short of being totally amazing. I mean, you can get some beautiful looking concrete using this product in conjunction with different types of finishes within the structure. Here you're going to look at a couple of the different products here. We have two different photographs here. This is basically showing you the one on the right-hand side is actually showing a pool that it typically has a consistent finish, exposed aggregate, house with the slip resistance, etc. The one on the right here also has an exposed aggregate, but you're also looking at a deeper etch on the perimeter of that walkway. That actually is just a highlight feature, and to me, for me, that is just I really like that type of a finish. So now retarders, what are we talking about when we say what is a retarder? Now, Retarders chemically react with the concrete, the free line within the concrete, and basically take the cement paste near the surface of the concrete and basically retard that from setting so it can be removed later on. Um, it typically is designed to be, applied just as you finish up striking off the concrete, and it's supposed to be removed within 24 hours. A lot of times guys will pour later at night and then come back early in the morning, so they get about a 12, 14 hour layover with it. Depending on your temperatures, your wind, your humidity, etc. Sometimes you have to wait a little longer, sometimes you can go a little bit faster. So one of the nice things about the Topcast product line is that the products are tinted as far as we are concerned with our product line. The product itself can be applied and you can actually know, you can visibly see what product you have based off the color of the product. So which actually helps with a lot of people being visual, because a lot of times when you get to job sites, labels seem to disappear off pails, etc. This way here, you know exactly what you got.
So you can see which X you're gonna use. For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's handy.
So surface retardants, basically, as I said, after you screed and you bull float, the surface consistent of the aggregate varies in size. So what's going to happen here, you don't want to hit it. And basically, when you strike off the concrete, you want to apply your surface retarder at, basically during bull floating and troweling. The fine aggregate cement, the paste will rise to the surface. That typically what gives you that high sheen, and then it comes back to a low luster. What that happens then is it forms a smooth, flat finish on the slab. And at that point, you're going to be applying the surface retarder. It gets absorbed into the top cement paste and basically slowing down the hardening rate. Once a period of time has gone by, depending on the hours needed, uh, the loose paste, basically with that top surface where the surface retarder is penetrated to, can be washed off. And typically, washing off is done, basically with a garden hose, pressure washer, and some other items that we will be talking about here. So now, so far, everything we've talked about has been an action to the job site, but there are a lot of processes that need to be done prior to even getting to that point. So with the pre-pour, you want to understand the specifications. You want to what etch you're going to use, whether it's a micro, medium, or deep, a combination of the Fs, the color of the pigment, or no color within the concrete mix. So those are things you need to take into considerations. You want to have the appropriate mix design for the desired etch. And the etches typically take a very similar approach to the mix design. What's going to really change in a lot of these is the aggregate size. Whether or not you want decorative aggregates can also be applied to it, where in lieu of having fractured granite, or you can use like a river rock, etc., to actually, in lieu of that aggregate, to actually enhance the finish on the concrete. And that's where you're going to have a lot of communication with your ready mix producer. For pre-planning considerations, you got to basically plan this thing out here. These projects here typically require knowledge of the pour sequence, the multiple etch plan, especially if you have multiple different etches at different locations within the project. You're also going to have, if required, you're going to need a containment area for where you can have your wastewater run off to that can be contained so it won't basically leach into any of the sewers, etc., and the drain system. So you got to be able to have that taken care of. You've got to understand the lead time that's required of doing top cast. And then you got to want to make sure when the product arrives on site, you want to inspect the pails to make sure that the level, etch level or the material is all the correct material you're looking for. And then you want to check on the package, basically check the expiration date. I can't stress this enough. If you've never done a project before like this or looking at doing projects like this, you may want to do some mock-up panels. I've seen guys do mock-up panels and then actually have photographs of each system that they've done of each etch, ones that they're very consistent with, and especially if they're going to use the same ready mix supplier, et cetera. You're not getting a change in the cement water mixture, any of the admixtures that are added in. Things are basically, you want to have a mock-up here so you know what the finished product is going to look like. Now, we talk about mixed designs for what the expectations are. Typically for both either a micro etch or a deeper etch, you're going to want a minimum of 3,500 PSI concrete. FCMs, fly ash, type 1L cement, do not use if possible. Both of these have characteristics that actually work against you with the application and the finishing of the concrete. So unless a contractor can provide a full list of successful projects using SCMs, I wouldn't recommend them. You're going to want to have, obviously, when we talked earlier, we said you want to have for your for your micro etches or your really thin, real quick, easy etches, you're going to want to have a fine aggregate consisting of no more than 50 to 55% maximum content of aggregate. The coarse, you're going to be able to, with a little bit deeper etch, it means you want to have a little bit bigger aggregate because you're going to take a little bit more of that surface off. Obviously, if you had a finer aggregate in and went to a deeper etch, all you're going to do is take off the top. You're going to just take paste off the top of the concrete and you're going to take the aggregate with it. So you're just going to keep going down and down. So that's kind of where the reasoning falls here. Water cement ratio, basically, nothing greater than 55.55 by weight. And slump, basically a 4 to 5 inch slump material is typically what is best suited for working with this product. And that will change with depending on heat, humidity, wind, etc. So if greater than a 5 inch slump is required for workability because of temperatures, use only the add like a water reducer or super plasticizer if you have to. Don't add water on the job site. That's just going to throw the water cement ratio off and will actually affect the finished product. So air content, typically going to run anywhere between 4.5 to 7.5% by volume. So depth of the etch. When you're talking to your ready mix supplier, allow the ready mix producer to provide correct aggregate gradations, ratios, especially for the achieved desired etch. Most ready mix companies have 2 or 3 bins of aggregate that they can typically choose from. They have obviously their biggest, their 3/4 to 1 inch one. They have a smaller one. They may also have a decorative finish one, especially if they get into areas that do a lot of this. So talk to your ready mix and quality control manager for aggregates that are basically the most basically aesthetically pleasing on the site. Mix design shall be the same for the entire project. And this is one of those instances right here, your mix design, you may want to play with that a little bit, especially with your mock-ups. so that you can understand what's going to happen when different mix designs are used with different types of etches. Mix design minimums, we look at 3,500 PSI concrete, 4 to 5 inch slump, no fly ash, no type 1L. Typically air 4.5 to 7%, 7.5%. Uh, Usually required in free thaw conditions. So you see a lot of this, especially in the northern half of the country. You're going to be, especially now, you're going to be kicking into the 7.5, 6.5 to 7.5% uh, areas here, especially based off of the temperatures that we're starting to see now as the temperatures start to go down. So and usually the engineer of record, if there is an engineer of record on site, is going to be here. If there is no engineer of record, it's going to be the owner of the project will have the final say. So that's why I recommend the mock-ups. Admixtures based on the ambient temperatures project requirements. Yeah, you may have to have a retarder, an accelerator, a superplasticizer. This year, obviously, there's been a lot of retarding going into concrete because, and basically a lot of the plasticizers basically to slow things down because of the extreme temperatures that we've been seeing. Cold weather accelerators. Calcium chloride could be used for non-pigmented concrete. Calcium chloride has a tendency to blotch pigment concrete. It actually collects a lot of the pigment, and then what happens is your concrete will come out with a different little bit of tone color, or you end up with a blotchy area and color wise. Um, so non-chloride basically should be used for anything that's pigmented. And then warm water, you're going to want to have plenty of retarders, including a J74 on site, just in case. Water reducers, superplasticiers, and flowability and pumpability. One of the things you want to have is make sure that you're not going to have concrete setting up in the truck before it comes out, or actually comes out in like a 2 inch slump or a 1 inch slump material. You want to make sure you do have a little bit of that water available and or the plasticizers kick in to help the flow of the concrete. Same mix design will not necessarily work on all etches. So basically, depending if you have done a micro etch in the past, you typically can't use that same mix design for a coarse aggregate. So you've got to, it's one of the things why we recommend the mock-up panels here to actually get comfortable with what your mix design has to be based on whether or not you've got a micro etch because you're going to actually have more sand, cement contents with that and a smaller aggregate to meet expectations what you're looking at for that exposed aggregate, depending on the type of the finish that you're looking for. And then obviously if you're going to something as extreme as the increased aggregate content, you're going to be going to 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches, maybe even up to 1.75 inches aggregate size, which will be a very aggressive aggregate for a concrete mix. And this will typically have one of the deeper etches within the Topcast product line. So at Topcast, we've actually produced a series of applications, basically spray on, what color, location, whether it's a light acid wash finish, all the way down to 1.5 inches exposure here. You're talking everything from white, violet, light blue, yellow, beige, canary green, which is a light green, blue, gray, pink, darker green, and then salmon and orange. Orange being the most aggressive etch that we have. Pre-planning considerations. Obviously, you're going to look at your pour sequence. Where the etches are going to be, if you're going to have a consistent etch, or if you're going to be an etch that's going to actually alternate or leapfrog with other areas here. Silt containment, obviously a water contained isolated project, depending on whether or not you've got to be worried about freshwater application and exposure with the material or runoff. Proper lead time. You're going to want to make sure that you have proper lead time so that you can make sure you have your ready mix pump, a ready mix producer can produce the product, deliver it to the site, and then have it ready to go. So, and you always want to typically order from a local supplier just because transportation, the way things go, it may take you 20 minutes on a typical day to get from the ready mix shop to the job site. But you never know, you get that one truck ordered up here and next thing you know is that it's going to take them 45 minutes to get there. So those are all things you need to take into consideration. So you try to reduce as many risks as you have when you order from a local supplier. And once again, mock-up panels, I can't stress it enough. Basically, this is going to be your floor plan. It's also going to be a great insurance policy, and I hate to say I use that terminology, but creating a mock-up panel for, especially if you're dealing with a homeowner on a large project, will save you that hassle and the heartache if the project comes out. You get the finish that you wanted, that was originally required, and then the homeowner, the owner comes back and says, that's not what I wanted. Well, when you actually set this up here, by him selecting which surface he wanted, he typically, basically locks himself in. So this is typically, I always recommend a 4x4. I don't recommend a 2x2 or 1x1. Those panels are just too small to get a full grasp of. A good 4x4, 3x3 is a good size. You want to have something a little bit big, so it's going to give them a little bit of area that they can actually see the product as it lays out on the slab. You're going to also see different types of treatments that can be put on here. Whether or not you want to make sure you're going to have the post applied treatments for cures, densifiers, sealers, even the extender that you put on the product here, because that may change a little bit of the tone of the color of the concrete, especially using pigment. So you want to make sure that anything you're going to put on it in the mock-up is what's going to be on the finished product. Once again, I said, you want to check the pail. Make sure you got the right uh, tint or etch material that you've got. You want to also check the date code on the product. Here you can see the label here is what we're showing in the slide here. It's pretty well easy to read. You see where the date code is highlighted there. For prepping that product, don't grab it and just roll it around on the ground or have your biggest guy on the strap grab a hold of that 5-gallon bucket and just shake it. That's not going to work. Basically, use a paint mixer with a drill to actually, or paddle mixer type thing, to actually mix that material up thoroughly within the product here, basically to make sure you get a good mix of product. Strain the product. Okay, every once in a while you may end up getting a product here, especially if you've got old pails on basically in your job site or trailer or whatever. Uh, Make sure you strain the product before you put it in the sprayer. This is going to alleviate any lumps or any contamination that may have been exposed to the product once it's been opened. This way here. And one of the things I will tell you guys, invest in a good quality sprayer. Okay. And don't try to use the same sprayer for spraying form release and curing compounds from the job you did last week to this job here. Invest in a good quality sprayer, put it in the bid. Look, it's $130 for a decent sprayer for a Chapin or an equal product like that. And you typically want to have a fan tip or cone adjusted to 0.5 gallons per minute. don't use the big box, the big box stores, the plastic sprayers that you get, for 19.99. Uh, you don't want to use those. Those sprayers will end up gumming up on you, and you'll end up actually creating yourself to have more problems than you will if you just spent the money ahead of time. Uh, so the sprayer, obviously, before the concrete arrives, so you're all ready to go. Uh, a lot of times you'll see some guys will have backpack sprayers. So there a lot of times there'll be just high pressure backpack sprayers. Make sure they're ready to go because once this product starts, it's one of those that you want to go through and have everything fall right in play. Everybody knows what the guy is doing on this job and then what has to be next on the project, what has to be completed. You want to make sure you treat your forms with a proper form release because you don't want to pop the corners off of you don't want to have to patch any of the concrete that may chip off when you remove the forms. So use a good quality form release such as Magic Coat or J1A. And then obviously protect the surrounding areas with the SS100. Uh, the SS100 is basically a protective material for like brick and mortar. Do not spray it on glass because it will stain the glass and it is a bear to get off. So you do not want to spray it on glass. You want to make sure you can spray it on any brick, mortar, concrete, other concrete, etc. It basically is a protective, makes a protective barrier. Uh, Typically, that product must also be removed best time to do it is when you remove the top cast itself, usually within the 24-hour period. Use an evaporation retarder. I said, make sure you have some J74 on hand, ready to go, just in case, depending on whether or not, like I said, what the heat, what the temperature, wind, etc., what the humidity are. You want to make sure you're always ready for instances where you're getting concrete that's setting up early. Prior to applying the top cast, place the concrete at 4 to 5 inch maximum slump. Screed flat. Basically, you're going to have your wood screeded out flat, particularly on the micro finishes. Then bowl float with a wooden bowl float in both directions. Okay. Roller tampered or jitterbug, basically to make sure you've got no pockets or anything and help smooth things out and keep everything in a fluid state here, making sure that the concrete doesn't have aggregate settling out, so you don't want to over vibrate it. So just make sure you hit roller tamper or jitterbug it really quick. Uh, then bowl float for a second time. Wait until the bleed water has left before you go any further. First thing you're going to do is edge the slab. Basically, you could put your edge on the slab, put your curve radius on the edge of the slab, run through that, then with a metal edger, and then break the surface again with that wood float. You don't want to have a sealed surface on the top. So you're basically going to hit it with the wood float again, then the beginning the finish of the float system then begin the final finish with the magnesium float. And that'll actually help seal the surface of the concrete. Applications protect the area. We talked about the SS100 consistent. Basically, you want to make sure why am I we don't sell sprayers. So I don't make a penny off anybody selling a sprayer. What it is that sprayer can make or break your job. If you have a sprayer that comes up and starts to gum up, you're going to end up with blotchy concrete on your finished product, and you don't want that. So you make sure you buy a good quality uh, sprayer with a good sprayer, screen the material before you put it in there, and also make sure dedicate one team member responsible for spraying a top gas. This is going to give you the most consistent surface spraying. A great thing you can do about this is when you start doing this, typically these are projects here that when the ready mix truck shows up, all hands on deck. Everybody has a select job. The guy with the sprayer is going to be doing the spraying of the material out here. He's not going to be doing any of the other stuff any of the other stuff. He's going to be doing some of the stuff at the beginning, but not towards the end of the finish of the concrete placement. Top cast typically will dry in approximately an hour after the application, depending on temperature, wind, humidity, etc. And obviously, it is resistant to a little bit of light rain or a sprinkle. A driving rain, you may end up with a little bit of a problem, as you all know, with placing concrete and driving rain. You get a lot of pitting, you just get a rain surface that just is not the most appealing. So when you're looking at this here, you got the spray going down here, you got the protective mat going up on top here, making sure the sprayer is hitting where it's supposed to go and you're doing a consistent project with the sprayer. Importance of a good sprayer, right there. That's why you want to have a good consistent sprayer. You don't want to have blotchy concrete on. Make sure that you spray consistently across the surface so you don't end up with areas that have been coated and other areas that have not. And do not walk on the concrete. Once you place the concrete and you put the top cast down, don't walk on it. You'll end up with footprints around here. My wife would shoot you if you walked in the house with footprints like that. So yeah, I don't want to have anybody get killed by their foreman for having this concrete with the people have walked on. Now, Site Saver, SS100, when do you apply it? Basically, it's a retarder application, so it's actually going to go on before you apply the top cast. Typically going to be going to basically helps the overspray material. It's a great thing to have on there. You see a lot of guys will do this, especially if you don't want to have a big piece of cardboard floating around the job site so it's refining so people don't overspray the actual concrete surface. Removal method. Well, preferred method, like I talked about earlier in the thing, was typical, what was traditional when I grew up in this business, was a power washer. Typically, you treat 4,000 PSI gun, typically keeping 4 to 6 inches away from the concrete. And I can tell you right now, my biggest problem with this is if the guy gets distracted for a second, you're going to end up with a little bit deeper etch than what you originally thought you were going to get. The guy that's on that hose has to be very consistent on how he works across the system. And you're going to want to use a stiff nylon brush to help in the removal. That's the old way to do it. The preferred method, realistically, is use a slow speed buffer.
Say again.
A slow speed buffer with a .050 nylon fiber, 80 grit bristle brush. Typically, this is going to go across the surface and give you a much more consistent finish. It's not going to go too deep. It's not going to take a lot off, but it won't take an exorbitant amount of material off. And then at that point, you're going to have a garden hose to actually help rinse it all off with. Removal method, typically remove it between 4 and 16 hours, depending on temperatures. Like I said, a lot of times guys will come back 12, 14 hours later. Typically I want to say 8 to 12 hours is the window. Successful early removal, 4 to 6 hours, depending on the temperatures. You got to make sure that the concrete is set and that you haven't dried the concrete out too much. Early removal, typical use a low pressure, garden hose with a stiff bristle brush works best. Getting on too early with the buffer can actually cause more damage than not. So at that point, you may want to wait till you get towards the end of the 6 to 7 hours, 8 hours. you want to get into that time frame. Manage removable time to prevent excess etching. You don't want to have the guy with the hose, like I said. You want to make sure you're well and consistent within that. If you need a little more time, there is an extender, the EX 2000 that is available. And anything below 50 degrees or more, you're going to use the full 16 hours, sometimes even a little bit longer than 16 hours. As we talked about the removal, you're gonna have a high pressure washer. You see the buffer right there in action. Stiff bristle brush, we all know what that is. Usually has a long 5-foot handle on it, so the guys can, and then obviously the rubbing brick to help any of those rough areas that you may have. Slow speed buffer. Here's what the difference is between the two. High pressure washer and a bristle brush. You can see how it basically shows off that highlights that aggregate that you got in the concrete. Now, for post protection, got 3 different flavors here of material. We got a penetrating protector. Typically, it's going to give you a 5-year warranty, 5-year last, basically a 5-year period of service. Little bit, that's a great product to use for that. It is penetrating. Typically does not color change any effect on the concrete at all. You've got the SCS 400, which is basically a cure and seal that gives you a little bit of a semi-gloss. It's got a little bit of a high gloss finish to it. Gives you a good 2 years of normal use out of it before you have to reapply. And then the high gloss sealer is probably one of the better ones for if you want for like a residential type area. You're going to get 1 to 3 years. It's a high gloss film forming, so it will actually takes a little bit of that roughness off the surface of the concrete, but still gives you a rough surface for an anti-skid surface. Vertical applications. Surface retarders typically are not recommended for vertical applications. However, we have had a lot of skilled decorative concrete guys use actually surface retarders in vertical applications. If you're going to have to do a vertical application, I recommend getting a hold of one of our technical service reps at Dayton Superior, and they can actually walk you through that process. So, like I said, best thing you want to do, have for keys for a successful project, planning. You want to have a pre-conference about 30 days in advance with designer, sub, GC, DSC, basically to make sure you have the product on what type of material you're going to have. Then you're going to want to make sure you talk to your ready mix supplier. Take into consideration what the weather is, obviously, and then what your pour layout, your scheduling is. Do your mock-up panels. You're going to want to have application and removal equipment ready to go. So if you're planning on using a buffer, make sure you got the buffer on site. If you have to go rent one, rent one. Make sure it's on site when you need it. And if you have to have any post-applied treatments, make sure you got those sitting there. And then utilize your resources. Dayton Superior is a great resource. We've got great customer service people. We have excellent technical service reps in the field and in the marketplace that have used this product multiple times and can help walk your way through this. And then we've got the representatives from Grace that can actually help us with any other issues that we may have. So we're here to help. If you need additional training, scan that QIR code. We've got samples, books, and handbooks available. We got help you with pre-construction meetings, and we can actually help you with the mock-up panels. We also have videos on our DaytonSuperior.com website. Basically, we've got Topcast decorative finish, we've got Site Saver, an extender, and then on the finishing materials, we got how-to videos available for all those products out there. Go to DaytonSuperior.com or go to YouTube and look at Dayton Superior and then scroll through the 100 or some videos that are on there. And you'll be able to find what you're looking for.
Yeah, and they're actually on the product pages for each of those products. So if you want to find them, just go right to the product page on DaytonSuperior.com.
And on the Dayton Superior, you'll have the landing page here for Topcast. Just put in Topcast in the top search bar. This system will come up here, and all of your sheets here are available, basically highlighted here to run down through the different products and help you through any of that product line. So you got product pages, you got your tech data sheets, etc., and your application and usage sheets. Your safety data sheets are also available here. Any guide documents and any user guide application. We've also got available our chemical handbooks are also available online. So you can actually, if you're looking for anything other than a surface retarder, you can see what other products that we have available for your use. And where do you find all this information? Well, if you go to our website, you're going to go to the regional map, you click on Dayton Superior products, you look what region you're in, so look up what these chemical technical service rep phone number is in there, his name is in there. You can get a hold of him typically any time. You can give him a call or give us a call here and we can actually help get you in contact with your proper representative. Now, Superior Deal of the Month. Typically, we have every month we have a Superior Deal of the Month. Special this month is you're going to be buy 20 gallons of Topcast EX 200 and get a pail. So you buy 4 pails of Topcast EX 200, you get 1 pail free of either the SS 100, the 200, the PR 300, CS 400, or the HS 50 or HG 5500. So once again, you buy 4 EX 200 extenders, you get 1 pail of your choice free.
That's right. Contact your sales representative. Chuck showed you how to get to that. Go to DaytonSuperior.com, and in the top toolbar, you've got contact us, and you can get right to the person that meets your needs. If you have any questions, I know we're over, but feel free to put them in and we can get them answered for you off to the side, or, if you want to stay on, we can try to do that too. Give you just a second if you do have any. Reminder that we record these, and I'll get that placed out there a little bit later on this afternoon. And what's going on next week? We got some grout sleeves, right?
Well, next week is a new product, our grout sleeve, single end grout sleeve.
That's right. But we're going to be talking about all grout sleeves and if you should even do that in the application.
Right.
So sign up for that one next. And it doesn't look like we have any questions. So I'm going to go ahead and close it for today. If you guys do have questions, go ahead and click on that or scan that QR code, and it goes to Chuck and myself, and we can find out the information for you. Of course, Mr. Chuck always knows things, so he'll get it for you. With that, I'll see you guys next Tuesday, and have a great rest of your day. Bye now.